Hey, I'm getting ready to pull up to the bank here to make a deposit and wanted to talk to you today about your pay package. Please understand that you can make enough money in ministry to have a really good, comfortable living, but you are not going to get rich. When we talk about pay packages, a pay package really includes two basics, and that is like your weekly paycheck and then your housing. So, say you get paid $50,000, that's your pay package. You can then divide that and take $35,000 as your weekly pay, and that's taxable. And then $15,000, which would be a little over $1,000 a month for your housing, and that is non-taxable. And that can include things like your mortgage, home repairs, anything that you do improvement wise, things to keep the house up and keep it clean, light bulbs and stuff like that. So you have to figure out how to divide that, and then that's divided once a year. So when you sit down and talk with a board who's looking to hire you, you talk about pay package, they're normally going to give you a set amount like $50,000, and then you cut that up. So you need to know kind of what it's going to cost to run and maintain and pay for your living, your house for that year. Now, some of the things that some pay packages may or may not include is your pension, which, I belong to the Church of God, and we have a Church of God pension fund. Some churches will put into your pension fund and some churches will not. It is my high recommendation that whether they do or do not, that you put into your pension. When Rhonda and I first got into ministry back in 1995, at that time, the minimum monthly amount that you could put into your pension fund was $25. And when you're right out of college and dirt poor and you have a baby and you're a one income, $25 a month is huge. But we made the commitment to do that, and so we have always put into my pension. And again, some churches will, some churches won't. Sometimes a church will just randomly, maybe a one time or a once a year into your pension fund. Insurance, again, some churches will and some churches will not. And the thing that you have to realize is it's difficult for a church to pay for insurance when kind of, the company is just a few employees. It costs a lot. A lot of pastors really rely on their spouse to carry the insurance. When we lived in Ohio, there was a time where we didn't have insurance. That's just the way it was. The church did not provide insurance, and we couldn't afford insurance, and so we just didn't have insurance. And that's a hard way to raise a family with two little boys. And then Rhonda was blessed with an amazing job at an amazing company, and so they had a great insurance program, and so for many years she carried our family on that. The first ministry I was at, they just couldn't afford insurance for us. The second ministry I was at, for many, many years, they just could not afford insurance. But then there came a year where instead of giving us pay raises, they set aside X amount of dollars for us to seek out insurance. And for us, for Rhonda and I, basically what that meant was she would carry us through her company's insurance, but the church paid for that. So it helped us out immensely. That pay package is something you negotiate at the hiring table. When you first get into ministry, you're going to be super excited. Some church is going to come along and be like, yeah, we're going to hire you right out of college and we're going to pay you $30,000. You divide that between, your pay and your housing. But you can negotiate that. And so and I'll give you an example with my vacation time. When I left my first ministry, I had acquired X amount of days of vacation time. So I went to my second ministry. they actually offered me less, and I stood my ground and said, basically, I'm working for the same company because it's still a Church of God. I've just moved location, so I was not willing to negotiate my or sacrificing my vacation, and then I carried that same process to my current ministry, and so I've never given up any vacation time. And when I went from youth ministry to senior ministry, I was able to negotiate even the pay. So that's something you need to do in the hiring process. Some of the other financial perks, Christmas bonuses, again, some churches will and some churches will not. And even the churches that do, that will depend on the kind of financial year the church had as to whether they can give you a bonus or what that dollar amount would be. So you can't really count on a church bonus, but it's a great perk when that happens. Pastor Appreciation Month is in October, and some churches do that and some churches do not. And some churches just, man, they hit grand slams out of the park, and some churches fail miserably. And so from my own experience, we've had receptions, with dinners or big cakes. Sometimes I've gotten, a cash bonus. One time I was given an additional vacation day to take off at my leisure, paid. There was a church that planted a tree on the property in honor of myself and the other pastor, so that was pretty cool. And then there was a story. I knew a pastor. He'd been at his church for 20 years, faithfully serving for 20 years. And this church had a big fat bank account. They were very well set. But he told me, and this really discouraged him, that in 20 years, he had amassed 20 ties. Every year, they would recognize him from the pulpit and give him a new tie. So some churches are going to do it, some churches aren't. Some churches are going to be great at it, and some churches just aren't going to be great at it. But, it's one of the perks that you may or may not receive. Mileage and gas reimbursement, again, some churches may and some churches may not. I've worked at churches where each month I would turn in the miles that I drove in my vehicle, and they would reimburse me for that. I worked at a church where they didn't reimburse me for that, but I could fill my gas tank up, to compensate for the miles that I had driven. I worked at a church that had a church vehicle, and so anytime I did church business, I was driving the church vehicle. The ministry I'm at currently has this old 15-passenger Ford van. It's kind of a beater, and but I tried to drive that a lot. One, because it's free promotion. I'm driving around town in a church van, and two, it saves wear and tear on my vehicle. One of the things that's not really financial, but you'll be salaried most likely, and so if you work a ton of hours one week, you just comp your time, and so maybe you work less hours, or you take a day off here or a day off there to comp the ministry hours that you worked on a really long week. One of the other perks, again, your church may or may not do this. It just really depends on the heart of the people and the heart of the individuals. But you may find people sitting in your pews who just want to love you and support you, and random acts of kindness that come in the forms of food, gift cards, and sometimes cash. I had a man in one of my ministries that an older gentleman, and I would always make it a point to go and talk to him and see him on Sunday mornings, just love on him. And just randomly, he would stick money in my hand, random amounts at random times, but he just wanted to support Rhonda and I and love on us. I had another couple. Rhonda and I were headed out to Colorado to see Justin, and out of the blue, somebody in the church just came up and handed me a large amount of cash and said, we just want to support you on your vacation, and let you and your wife and your family have an enjoyable time. And so those were just bonus blessings that are beyond your pay package. Now, here's one of the things that may come to a shock to you, especially if you're a private person when it comes to your finances. And some churches don't do this, but most churches do. In the printed budget, which is public to your church members and may even be posted somewhere for all to see, there's usually a line item that is your salary. And so if you're a private person, just understand that your whole church is going to know how much you make. And there's going to be people who know if you got a raise and how much you got. Some churches kind of hide that. I was at a church with multiple staff, and there was a decision to be made. Instead of listing each staff member and their salary, it just, we lumped them all together. So it showed staff salaries, and all of the staff salaries were one lump sum. So just want you to be aware of some of the pay package and compensation things that you will face, so that you can kind of work your way through that, and that you can be blessed, you won't be shocked, and you kind of have a better understanding about pay packages as a pastor. Hey, I got to get through here and make my deposit and get back to the office. Have a great day.